I'm going to talk a little bit about ignoring your calling and why you can't actually do that. It's not really possible to stay comfortable and ignore your calling. So, a little bit about myself. From a very young age, at a very young age, I detached from my ego. Not completely, obviously, but I was able to witness as the observer. I couldn't quite figure out what it was, but it freaked me out. I was about 9 years old, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I looked at my hands and I started bending my fingers and realized that I was inside of a body, that I was making choices, that I was alive, that I was inside of some sort of, um, I don't want to say Matrix because it's not like the movie The Matrix, but inside some sort of experiential place where I was both an observer outside of my thoughts and my mind, and then also within my mind, and then also inside of a body. And I started having a panic attack, got up, ran to my parents' room, freaked out. And then a little bit after that, I tried to explain to my parents and to anyone who would listen, basically, how my thoughts were going in circles as I would think about my thinking. Needless to say, that concerned some people, and being a remarkably sensitive child, I was very susceptible to this sort of dissociative effect. I was trying to explain to people that my life was like a movie, they couldn't get it. And that feeling of not being understood kind of kept increasing. And I ended up starting to cut myself around the age of 13. Starved myself, lost all of my friends, like childhood friends. Went into the hospital, a bunch of really gnarly things, was diagnosed for several years with several different illnesses, given lots of different pills, went to lots of different therapists, one of whom I loved, and I ended up getting a lot of insight from him. But they called me, they thought I was crazy. And because of that fear of being crazy, I denied for a very long time the fact that I am a healer, a teacher, a channel to this source knowledge, and always have been my entire life. So basically, what I'm trying to get across here today is that eventually you have to give up. You've got to let go and just claim and be whoever it is that you are. Because if you don't, the suffering will become more and more intense, which is what happened to me. I felt lost. I felt confused. I was terrified that I was crazy. I was terrified of my cycles of being happy and then being extremely depressed. And I was afraid of what people labeled that cycle, when really it just means that you're tremendously sensitive, but you lack focus. But then at a certain point, very recently, in fact, I just said, fuck it. This is who I am. This is what I am. This is what I have to share. And as soon as I did that and took a lot of very big leaps, completely moved states, sat in 4 plant medicine ceremonies that were absolutely spectacular, and I will continue to work with that medicine and share with you what I find. But as soon as I started doing that, the magic began to follow me. Signs, symbols, situations, experiences, people. It was absolutely insane, to the point where people around me started noticing what was going on, and then they realized within their experience that they were doing the same thing. That leads to what I'm about to tell you next, which is very big, it's very important, and I really want you to understand it. You have control over your experience. To the degree that you can focus, let go, and surrender, you can affect the situations around you. You must first become in tune with who it is that you are, though, because you have to know what it is that you want, even if that's just in a general sort of sense. You want well-being, you want happiness, you want fun, you want clarity, all of those sort of buzzwords that other spiritual teachers were used to them saying, used to hearing. Even if you're just focusing in on that generally, you have to choose it. You have to choose it 100%. And then anytime something doesn't line up with that person that you are, if something feels off, if a situation or a relationship with someone or a conversation or whatever the case may be, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels bad, it's not right. Walk away from the situation, walk away from the conversation, end whatever, end your own self mid-sentence if you have to. But whatever you do, don't continue to be untrue to yourself. That suffering will get more intense. Leading back into my story a little bit, I had to bounce back and forth into several depressive cycles in order to gain this knowledge. And it was good and it was right that I did so, because the deeper the suffering, the louder the mental noise, the harder it is that you're wringing your hands against whatever it is inside of you that wants to get out, but you're afraid to let it out, or you're nervous, or you don't think it's good enough, or you're not quite sure what it is. Whatever that is, it will get more intense the more you ignore it. It will get bigger. It will be begging to come out of you, because that's why you came here. So you have to let go. You have to surrender. You have to decide that you don't care what anybody else thinks, that you don't care really what happens to you, and trust that everything is going to work out. Because as soon as you say yes to yourself, everything must work out. But it is only through faith that you can get these things to work out. Faith and letting go. There seems to be somewhat of a disagreement between those two things, but let me explain. Faith requires trust in the same way that letting go requires trust. But faith also has this other thing behind it, which is believing that what you want, or that your well-being, is intact and cared for and looked after by something outside of yourself. So when you want something, you have to accept that it's already there. You have to accept that you already have it. And then, here's the tricky part. You have to have faith that it's coming to you. But if you're constantly questioning, constantly worrying, constantly thinking about it, constantly thinking about not having it, that's not having faith. That's not letting go. In the Christian community, they use the phrase let go and let God, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm not sure that everyone that uses it realizes what it is that they're saying. They're saying, you can have whatever you want. This experience that we're in is not all of it. We are divine beings inside of vessels, and we came here to have these experiences. There is no purpose or meaning to life other than the purpose and the meaning that you derive through following your bliss and your joy and sharing with people in compassion, evolving other people's souls. And the only reason that we want to evolve other people's souls, evolve our own souls, is because we want this experience to be as fun as it possibly can be, to be as bright and shiny and joyful. We're in a constant place of never-ending unfolding, of expansion. Terence McKenna referred to this as the 0 point. Many other people refer to it as the singularity. So we're in an age of novelty. The internet really kind of sparked, it didn't really spark, technology was moving exponentially beforehand, but the internet was really what sparked just the next level of novelty, meaning newness, meaning constantly something different, constantly something that you can learn or something that you can create, something different that you can think, different feelings that you can have. Because that is constantly moving faster, our souls are also moving faster. And you have to align with the pulse of the universe. So what do I mean by that? The universe is sending off little pulses, all right? And I'm using this as a metaphor. It is true, but don't think of it as literally true, because you're not going to get the meaning. The universe is sending out these little pulses, all right? Like waves, like little energy waves. And jumping on the wave from behind, you're basically standing backwards, you're feeling this wave come, and then you got to jump on the wave, basically. If you don't jump on the wave, it'll knock you over. Or if you're jumping too far before the wave, you're going to tire yourself out, and then you're still going to get knocked over by the wave. So what that means is, whether it comes to sharing, whether it comes to creating, anything that requires action, you have to wait for the fruit of that thing to be ripe. If you eat it too soon, if you share too soon, then the fruit is bitter, perhaps even poisonous to both you and the person that you're sharing with. But then if you wait too long, the fruit is overripe and it's falling from the tree. you want to eat it when it's ripe. You want to jump on the universal pulse when you feel it. But in order to line up with the pulse and to realize when the appropriate time to take action is, you can't be overthinking anything. And the way to not overthink is to let go. You have to follow the gentle impulses and allow the signs and the symbols that enter your life. Don't take my word for it. Choose something, anything. It could be an animal, it could be numbers, it can be a phrase, it can be a word, anything. Associate what it is that you want with that phrase, and then see how often, how many times, how quickly you can allow that phrase or that animal, that word, those numbers into your experience. And then allow those symbols to continue. Those symbols aren't asking you to take action. They're just asking you to watch them as they unfold. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be helpful here. I guess I'll use one more biblical example and then I'll close this out. So there is, I wish I could remember where it is in the Bible, but there is a story about Jesus on a ship with his disciples, and there's a huge storm tossing the boat around, and Jesus is sleeping in one of the bunks below. And his disciples are panicked, and they come down to Jesus, and they wake him up, and they say, Jesus, we're in a storm, we're going to go over, we have to figure out how to survive, we're going to die, the waves are crashing over the boat. And Jesus comes to the top of the boat, and he says something along the lines of, "O ye of little faith." He is angry, he's livid with them for thinking that they could possibly be in harm, that they would sink in this ship. And then his faith, his knowing of his well-being, his knowing of their well-being, his connection to that divine source, stills the waters, makes everything calm. So really, that's the sort of faith that you have to have in order to let the process unfold. Do so at your own pace. Don't force it. I think that's all I have to share with you guys today. I'll see you later.